For those of you guys who've ever heard me preach or anything, I share a lot of my testimony with you guys. I kind of wear my sin on my sleeve a little bit. I tell you guys a lot of the things I've struggled with in the past. But for me, there's so many different avenues you can go down, right, for your testimony or your story or whatever. But for me, I think the thing that was constant throughout was identity crisis. I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up, and I have to be specific with that because there was a time when I was talking to somebody, I was like, I grew up in a Christian home, and they're like, you didn't have parents? And they thought it was like a Christian home, like a home. And I was like, no. So, but I grew up with Christian parents. My parents loved the Lord. They loved each other. My siblings, all three of my siblings love the Lord. We all love each other. You know, it's just but you know, for me, it was my relationship with God was through my parents. You know, it was like, that's what you do. It's a lot like what Cade was saying. You know, it's like, yeah, that's what you do. And for me, I grew up playing Pop Warner football in Sanford, and there was a lot of pressure on myself to be perfect. Okay, I found my identity in athletics. Okay, so I wanted to be better than everybody else. This started in elementary school, and then it went on from there. I had a lot of people. I was small growing up. I was really small. I was like 90 pounds my freshman year of high school. You know, I didn't start really growing until like my sophomore, almost junior year of high school. So I was always small. I always had people look down on me when it came to athletics. I was always picked towards the end when people were picking. And that always that set a fire in me, right? So what I would do is I would overcompensate by that by obsessing over being the best at it. Okay, so it wasn't good enough. And the reason I was like that was because if I'm not good at sports, then what else am I? Right? If I'm not good at this, then what else am I? So I was going to obsess over, because that was what I surrounded myself with. What you surround yourself with is what you will obsess over. Okay? So I was obsessed over being the best. Okay? So I would, for instance, since I was short, I love to play basketball, but since I was short, I had difficulty getting my shot over people without it being blocked. So I found one shot that you couldn't block, and I practiced it for hours. One shot I would practice for hours in my driveway until I had perfected it. Okay? I was obsessed over this, not because I wanted to be good, but because I wanted to find my identity in sports. And when I was a freshman in high school, all my life I wanted to play high school football. A lot of people want to I want to be NFL. No, I want to play high school football. I wanted to play Seminole high school football. Okay, so that was my thing. But the reason is because my cousins, I grew up going to my cousins' games, everything. Just to give you an idea, my great-grandma, who is turning 97 this year, she went to Seminole High School when it was where Sanford Middle School is now. So I have a history there. And that's all I wanted to do. And I was playing my freshman year, and I was starting and everything. And a week before our first game, I injured my knee, and I was out for the whole season. And so I had this choice. Okay, so I was like, you know what? I'll come back next year. I'll be ready to go. And I go, and at the time, it's not this way anymore, but at the time, the environment was horrific. It was horrible. Okay, it was terrible. It was so bad. And I can't put that to you anymore. Okay, so when I had a choice at that point. Okay, do I continue to pursue this because I've invested everything I have into this? Everything I have is invested into this. And if it's gone, then what's left? Well, eventually I dropped football, and I found my identity in something else. I found my identity in being funny. Okay, sounds kind of silly, but I wanted to be the funniest guy in the room. I wanted everybody to know when they think Mike Korgan, they're like, that guy's flipping hilarious. Okay, that's what I wanted. And I went to the point to where I was willing to sacrifice whoever I needed to sacrifice for people to think that I'm funny. And what that means is I was willing to make fun of people so that people would look at me as being funny. So I wanted to be an athlete, and then that was taken away from me. Then I wanted to be a comedian. Okay? Not a stand-up comedian, but I wanted to be a comedian in everyday life. It also means that I would joke when it wasn't a time to joke. Right? I think we can all agree that there's times where, you know what? You could probably just shut up. Right? That was me. Why? Because I wanted people to love me. That's what this all boils down to. I wanted athletics because I wanted people to look at me. I wanted to be funny because all I wanted, and I grew up in a house where my parents loved me. They told me every day that they loved me. And it was like in my house, and it's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe it's weird to you. I don't care. And I don't care if you think it's weird. Get over it. But it's like I'll be sitting in the living room or actually some people, it's like when someone leaves the house, you're like, oh, I love you, bye. I'll be in my dad's office just kind of talking, and then I'll be like, hey, I'm going to go sit on the couch. All right, love you. And I'll like love you, I'm leaving the room, okay? It was just a part of everything that we would say. I was told my whole life how much I was loved, but so badly I was craving more. I wanted love that wasn't because they had the same last name as me. Yeah, you could say that. Of course you're going to say that. You're my parents. Of course you're going to say that. You're my siblings. Of course you're going to say that. You're my grandparents, whatever. But I wanted love. I wanted adoration. I wanted people to look at me and think that I was awesome. And I found my identity in that, to the point to where I would compromise myself so I can have relationships. I wanted a girlfriend, okay? Very badly, I wanted a girlfriend. So what I would do is I would find people, and it was like just engraved and beaten into my head that you don't date people who are not Christians, right? So I would just find, if you were a Christian and you were halfway decent looking, okay, like, hey, I'm single, right? That was my thing. And let me tell you this, that somebody can be a good person but not good for you. Somebody can be a great person but not great for you. And that was hard. I dated somebody for 3.5 years. Okay? I dated this person for 3.5 years, and then they kind of constantly forced me to compromise myself. I missed curfew all the time. And I came home one day, and my dad told me, okay, you have a choice. Because I was causing division in my family, right? My mom was distraught all the time about it. My sister, who was my best friend growing up, didn't speak to me. And I came home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was a freshman in college, okay? So this wasn't like it was super long ago. And my dad told me, you have a choice. He goes, yes, I'm your father, but before I'm your father, I'm the husband to your mom. And you're causing her to be upset, so here's your choice. You either break up with her or you find somewhere else to live. Now, I know my dad loves me, but have you ever, maybe you have, had your parent tell you, you change this or you move? And that was hard. That was hard because I found my identity in being a good boyfriend. I found my identity in being a good boyfriend. I was committed to this person. I was committed to you. Whether you deserved it or not, doesn't matter. I'm committed to you. Well, eventually, I ain't got no money, so that choice was made. Sorry. But I'll tell you this, though, that when you lose everything, you're forced to be content with only Christ. And I'll tell you, if you're not content with only Christ, you'll never be content with anyone else. And here's what I'm trying to tell you guys is that your identity is not who you are, what you do, but your identity is, do you have a relationship with Christ or not? When God looks at you, does he see his son or does he see your sin? Because that's the only thing that matters, guys. God doesn't care how funny you are. God doesn't care how athletic you are. God doesn't care how ugly you are or how beautiful you are. You know what he cares about is that the blood of Christ was shed for you. What he cares about is, are you clothed in the righteousness of Christ? That's all that matters. And if you don't have that, then it doesn't matter how many people love you or like you, or how many likes you get on Instagram, or how many followers you have, or how many times you can make he or she giggle. That does not matter, because if it leads to hell, then who cares? There's going to be a lot of popular people in hell. So we need to stop living, and this is something I had to understand in my life. I need to stop living for the next 30 years and start living for the next 30 billion years. That's your choice. That's my choice. One of my favorite verses in the Bible. For I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. Now, it's one thing to say that, but do you truly believe that? I have one more thing, and then I'm going to be done. And I'm pretty proud of myself, because I think last time I preached I shared on Wednesday night, I went for an hour. So, yeah, and 4 minutes. Don't forget those 4 minutes. But I have one more thing to tell you guys. So I love Also, one thing I've always wanted to do, not always actually, since I was about 16, I always wanted to be in ministry. I always wanted to work in ministry. And I talked with Pastor Allen, and I got an internship, and I told him the only thing, I said, I'll do anything, I just don't want to work with kids. It turned out to be that was the thing I was the most passionate about. And I've been working and I was volunteering, and then I was on staff and working with students, with you guys, this year will be 5 years, which is crazy to think about. But I found my comfort in serving you guys. I found my enjoyment, my fulfillment in that. And one thing that kind of happened is that God called me to a different season of serving, to start a college ministry here. And that was difficult because I was like, someone's going to do it. It ain't going to be me, because I like where I'm at. But, there's something about God's not going to call you where you're comfortable. God's going to call you where he's called you to be. And you can either go or you can be drugged. But you're going to go. So we started this college ministry, and now it's awesome. We have about 30 to 40 college and young adults that meet on every Sunday night, which is so much fun, and it's a blast, and it's awesome. But here's the deal, guys. I had to learn it's not going to succeed or fail based off of me. Because what happens, again, is that I'm finding my identity in this. I'm finding my identity in being a good pastor, or in being able to put on a production. I have to be able to say, you know what? I died on the cross with Christ. I died when Christ died. And I rose again when Christ came into my life. See, Jesus died and rose again 3 days later. For me, I died the moment I realized who Christ was, and I was resurrected right there. See, a lot of us, we want the resurrection of Christ, but we don't want the crucifixion of Christ. And it doesn't work that way. In order for you to have a resurrection in your life, you have to be willing to crucify yourself. It is no longer I who live. I have been crucified with Christ. So my identity is not me. It's not in being a good husband. It's not in being a good employee. It's not in being a good son. My identity is found in the blood of Jesus Christ. And that's it, guys, because that's the only thing that matters. And if I go to heaven and the only thing that's on my tombstone was that he identified with Christ, then that's all I can ask for. If I die and the only thing people remember me for is he loved and served the Lord till the day he died, then I will be a happy man.